Merci for your introduction, and I join with Pascal to wish you all a sincere welcome to this ceremony in isolation. I have tried to make it look on your screen that I'm speaking from the John Monnet Centre in Villers Bretonneux. But in these days of travel bans, social distancing, and enforced isolation, that just cannot be. So instead, here I am in my own home here in central Queensland, in my suburb of Frenchville, and for any number of reasons, I think that the Alliance Française de Central Queensland has taken the initiative to produce this ceremony and to defeat the restrictions under which we live and to make this broadcast on Zoom. It is ANZAC Day here in Australia. And for Australians, it is our cultural heritage to rise early and commemorate the landing of the Australian and New Zealand forces on that fateful day in 1915. The liberation of Villers Bretonneux shares the same date, but 3 years later in 1918. I believe that this military victory by the Australian Armed Forces should be remembered with the same spirit. It was by Australian soldiers only, led by Australian commanders, who succeeded where others had failed. And to a real extent, this victory marked the turning of the tide of battle in an intractable war, led eventually to the signing of the armistice a mere 7 months later in this prolonged engagement. More than this, in times of peace, the liaison between the people of Villers Bretonneux and Australia has prospered continuously for more than 100 years. Here we are with the assistance of technology, each community reaching out to the other. Although separated by distance, we are joined today by amity and modern communication systems. I thank the members of the Alliance Française here who have assisted in the preparation of this event. And I extend the most heartfelt welcome to our new friends in Villers Bretonneux. To expand now on the historical events of April 19, I invite our AFDCQ member, Lieutenant Colonel retired John Phelan, to address our gathering now.
Thank you, Greg. For much of the First World War, the village of Villers Bretonneux was behind the front lines on the British side. 20 kilometres behind Villers Bretonneux is the strategically important city of Amiens. Railway lines linked the Channel ports to Amiens, where men and the materials of war were then sent to the front lines. The loss of Amiens would force the British Army to retreat northwest to the ports of Étampes and Boulogne-sur-Mer, allowing the Germans to drive a wedge between the British and the French armies and ultimately march on Paris. In March 1918, the front line was 70 kilometres to the east of Villers Bretonneux at Saint-Quentin. On the 21st of March, the Germans launched Operation Michael on a 60-kilometre front, one of the objectives being the capture of Amiens. The offensive was stopped just in front of Villers Bretonneux in early April. On the morning of the 24th of April 1918, the Germans attacked again and captured Villers Bretonneux, which was being held by tired British troops at the time. 2 Australian brigades, the 13th Brigade and the 15th Brigade, who were in reserve in the area, were ordered to immediately capture the village before the Germans could securely defend it. The 2 brigades encircled Villers Bretonneux, assaulting from the north and the south. By sunrise on the 25th of April, the town was being cleared of the remaining German troops. By the end of the day, the gap between the 2 brigades was closing with the help of British and Moroccan troops, and the front line was re-established on the 27th of April. Villers Bretonneux was free again. This was the last attempt by the Germans to march on Amiens. The next months would see them pushed back past the Hindenburg Line and the effective surrender in November. The people of Villers Bretonneux have never forgotten the role played by the Australian troops in liberating their town from the German army on the 25th of April in 1918. There are many references to Australia in the town, and the Australian National Memorial in the Sir John Monash Centre is a short distance to the north of the village. Thank you.
Thank you, John. The Australian troops went on to further military victories in the district, notably when Lieutenant General John Monash took command of the Australian forces, and along with other allies, he planned and executed a remarkable victory at a nearby village, Le Hamel, on July 3rd, 1918. There is a memorial to this battle amongst the farmlands outside Le Hamel. On this monument is inscribed a speech by Monsieur Georges Clemenceau, Président du Conseil de la France, made to the Assembly troops on July 7th. This speech will now be recited in both languages by two of our AFDCQ members, François Gallet and Stuart Harvey. The speech will now be recited in both languages by these two members, François and Stuart.
À l'arrivée des troupes australiennes en France, le peuple français attendait beaucoup de vous.
When the Australians came to France, the French people expected a great deal of you.
Nous savions que vous alliez mener une véritable bataille, mais nous ignorions que dès la première heure, l'Europe entière serait impressionnée.
We knew that you would fight a real fight, but we did not know that from the very beginning you would astonish the whole continent.
Demain, je dirai à mes compatriotes, j'ai vu les Australiens, je les ai regardés dans les yeux. Je sais que ces hommes combattront à nos côtés jusqu'à ce que les valeurs que nous défendons tous l'emportent pour nous et pour nos enfants.
I shall go back tomorrow and say to my countrymen, I have seen the Australians. I have looked in their faces. I know that these men will fight alongside us again until the cause for which we are all fighting is safe for us and for our children.
Thank you to François and Stuart. We are now crossing live to Villers Bretonneux, and we will first hear from Monsieur Dominique Vanpeperstraete. He will be followed by Madame Mrs Lelieur. Just reminding you that both speeches will be posted in a chat room in the English versions. Merci à vous, Dominique et Laurence.
When we settled in Villers Bretonneux in 1995, Australia seemed a faraway continent with very different landscapes, climate, flora, and fauna. We immediately felt that there was a strong connection between our little town of 4,000 inhabitants and this large country. So many references to Australia. The fact that Villers Bretonneux was twinned with Robinval, the street names such as Melbourne Street, the Victoria School, rebuilt thanks to Australian donations, the Aboriginal style mural in the school courtyard, the museum, the marsupial building used by our children, the Franco-Australian Association, the Koala Sports Club, and last but not least, since 2018, the John Monash Centre. When we became part of Villers Bretonneux, a little bit of Australia came into our hearts. When we participated in our first dawn service, we were impressed, touched by the presence of these men, women, then families with young children who had traveled from far away to honor these soldiers, foreign defending a land that wasn't theirs. How can we be thankful enough? Hosting Australian families seemed an evidence for us. So first came Charlie, then Sal and Chris, Joanne, Joseph, then John and his sickly clients. We have met generous people keen to communicate in spite of their language barrier. With every encounter, we feel this very strong link between Villers Bretonneux and Australia. We share the same values, a sense of friendship, conviviality, and the desire to share. We appreciate gastronomy, good wine, and champagne, and take pleasure in sharing all this with you. After each dawn service, we have got into the habit of getting together in a warm place with our French and Australian friends and share a breakfast of croissants and specially baked cakes. When it's possible, we love to help people discover our beautiful region and its heritage. The Amiens Cathedral, the Perron Museum, the Castle of Chantilly, the Champagne Caves in Reims. This year will be very different. Thank you, John, for inviting us to share this moment with you all. We will never forget Australia.
Thank you, Dominique, and we will now listen to Laurence.
Chers amis australiens, nous avons découvert votre engagement dans la Grande Guerre et votre histoire lorsque nous sommes venus vivre à Villers Bretonneux, Christian et moi, il y a 30 ans. Les échanges avec votre pays étaient très formels et peu développés. En 1993, notre oncle, le docteur Mrs Lelieur, maire de Villers Bretonneux, a eu l'immense honneur de ramener les restes du soldat inconnu de la Grande Guerre sur sa terre natale. Depuis, grâce à la volonté de femmes et d'hommes, d'ici et de là-bas, nos relations se sont renforcées. En 2001, c'est une tournée musicale qui a mené Christian en Australie avec le brass band orchestre de cuivre d'Amiens. De ce voyage est née une grande amitié avec Julie et Mike Lee, qui l'ont accueilli lors de l'étape de la tournée à Canberra. Dès lors, la promesse était faite de se revoir, en France ou en Australie. Mike a été le premier à tenir sa promesse. Il a appris le français, puis presque tous les 2 ans, il est venu nous rendre visite à l'occasion d'une tournée australo-française, car il joue lui aussi dans un brass band. Pour un ANZAC Day, ou alors, lors de vacances, nous l'avons accueilli en France avec sa famille. Ces visites, toujours empreintes d'émotion et de joie, étaient l'occasion de partager des moments importants pour nous tous. Le grand-père de Julie est mort dans la Somme pendant la Première Guerre. Nous avons visité beaucoup de lieux de commémoration. Le Hamel, Diepval, Vignacourt, Beaumont-Hamel. Mais le plus cher à leur cœur restait le mémorial de Villers Bretonneux. Un grand moment que nous avons partagé fut leur premier donne-service à Villers. Le recueillement de la foule, les discours solennels, les hymnes musicaux et les chorales, à l'aube, contribuent à rendre cet instant unique. Le lever de soleil sur la tour, le cornet soliste égrénant un last post dont la plaine se fait écho, alors on se souvient de tous ces jeunes soldats du bout du monde qui n'ont pas hésité un instant à donner leur vie pour sauver un pays, notre pays. Nous aussi, nous avons pu tenir notre promesse et avons fait ce grand voyage en Australie en août 2013. Nous avons pu constater combien Villers Bretonneux est important pour vous, combien le devoir de mémoire est présent et transmis à la jeune génération. La visite du Grand Musée de la Guerre à Canberra a été un moment très fort. We will not forget your sacrifice. We will not forget Australians. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Dominique et Laurence. We have been very touched by your contribution this afternoon here in Australia, and has truly enhanced the connection between our two countries. Nous vous remercions tous. We now come to that part of the ceremony where we recall and acknowledge the sacrifice of lives taken in foreign lands. This afternoon, we remember particularly those laid to rest in the now peaceful fields of northern France. In 1914, an Englishman, Lawrence Binyon, wrote and published his poem For the Fallen. Australians know a portion of it by its simple name, the Ode. Today, it will be recited by John Fallon. After a short period of silent reflection, the last post will be played. I now invite John Fallon to recite the Ode. At the end, please make your response at home, lest we forget, or n'oublions jamais.
They went with songs to the battle, they were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted, they fell with their faces to the foe. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget.
We will now be watching a young Rockhampton man, Jeremy Lapton, when he played the last post for his street this morning here in Rockhampton, after a minute of silence.
Practice that before, it didn't quite work.
Greg, the sound's not working. We are now inviting Greg to recite the poetry "The Farmer Remembers the Song" by Vance Palmer.
It is, of course, only right. It is, of course, only right that we honour the sacrifice of the fallen soldiers. I'm sure that when these young men enlisted into the armed forces in Australia, they really did think that they were about to depart on the great adventure of their lives. I suspect that even knowing that war takes lives, each one of them would have believed that it would be himself who would step out proudly in the victory parades upon their return. Sadly, death is not the only consequence of battle. Eric Bogle put words into the mouth of a wounded soldier at Gallipoli in his famous song, "The Band Played Waltzing Matilda." Then a big Turkish shell knocked me base overhead, and when I woke up in my hospital bed, I saw what it had done. Christ, I wished I was dead. I never knew there were worse things than dying. Physical injuries, disfigurement, disability, and loss of function are the obvious consequences of the casualties of battles. But so were the inward scars, the mental distress, the irrepressible memories of the savagery and the inhumanity of the trenches and the battlefields, and the lifetime of torment waiting for these soldiers upon their return. This became known as shell shock. We now acknowledge the condition as post-traumatic stress disorder. The Australian poet Vance Palmer did not know this distressing condition by this modern name, but he could write with eloquence about it. The farmer remembers the song. Will they never fade or pass? The mud, the misty fingers endlessly coming in file through the foul morass, and the grey floodwater ripping the reeds and grass, and the steel wings drumming. The hills are bright in the sun. There's nothing changed or marred in the well-known places. When work for the day is done, there's talk and quiet laughter and gleams of fun on folks' faces. I have returned to these, the farm and the kindly bush, and the young calves lowing, but all that my mind sees is a quaking bog in a mist, starts, trees, and the dark Somme flowing.
Thank you, Greg. You might now stand at home and raise your voices for the two national anthems, La Marseillaise followed by Advance Australia Fair. The salute to our country's friendship and amity. Thank you. Greg, I believe it is your turn to address our participants, but you are now muted. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
To you, Dominique, and your compatriots, our countries forged a long-lasting and strong bond in the dire circumstances of 2 world wars. Let us nurture this bond in times of peace as well. To you I say, vive la France.
Vive la France et vive l'Australie.
Vive la France et vive l'Australie.
That brings us now to the end of this ceremony. The Alliance Française de Central Queensland was delighted that everyone could join us today. And we hope that by this we have further cemented the friendship between Australians and the people of Villers Bretonneux. The participation of our new friends from France, Dominique and Catherine, as well as Christian and Laurence, has given us a true international flavor. Thank you. Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
This ceremony has been recorded and it will be available to be replayed on our Facebook page. You are now free to leave by logging out, but we will be keeping the Zoom session meeting open for some conversation with our French guests. Merci et au revoir.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Pour nos amis français qui veulent rester pour une conversation, nous restons là.
D'accord.
Bon, pas de souci, ok.
On va chercher un petit café.
On va chercher des croissants.
Ah, d'accord. Vous n'avez pas pris le petit déjeuner déjà.
Non.
They haven't had breakfast. They haven't had breakfast yet.
Pascal, pour tout ce que tu as fait pour les soldats, pour nous, ça a été beaucoup plus facile pour nous de participer à cette cérémonie.
C'était avec grand plaisir. C'était avec grand plaisir, mais le travail vraiment sérieux, ça s'est fait du côté de Greg. Greg est vraiment la personne qui a coordonné et John qui ont coordonné toute cette cérémonie.
Oui, un grand bravo à eux.
Alors c'est bizarre pour nous d'être là aujourd'hui. Il y a un an, et comme toutes les années précédentes, nous étions au mémorial. Et tout près de chez nous, il est à 1 kilomètre d'ici. Et les circonstances étaient vraiment différentes.
Oui.
On est content d'avoir pu participer via Internet. Mais bon, l'émotion est forcément pas la même que quand on peut se rendre sur place au mémorial.
I'm just trying to quickly translate in English what you're saying for those people whose English needs a little bit of help. J'essaie de traduire simultanément dans la chat pour que les gens comprennent ce que vous dites. Amongst the people present with us today, how many of you have made the trip to Villers Bretonneux?
Moi, je l'ai fait.
Sandra, Greg?
Moi aussi, il y a plusieurs années.
Oui. Donc, il y a au moins quoi?
Et nous reconnaissons une photo du musée derrière Greg. Je
Oui,
pense
bien
qu'il
sûr.
est-
Behind Greg. So that's Greg, your background is a photo from the Monash Center?
Yes, my photo is from the Monash Center, and behind me are 2 emus sculpted out of barbed wire. It's a very touching sculpture when you're there. We have another photo of Dominique and Catherine as well. It is there.
Yeah.
If you ask them to wave, they're in the tea of forget.
Pascal, sorry to interrupt.
You go, Nola.
Can I
You go.
speak just for a moment? I should have given you this information before you started your little ceremony and added it in, but I've just got up on my screen a letter that was sent by my great uncle from the battlefields around Armentières, where he died. He wrote it to his mother on the 19th of January 1917, his last letter home before he died on the 17th of March 1917. And these letters have been kept in my aunt's keeping since my great-grandmother died. And I just thought you might like to, if I could just read it quickly to you. It's not very long.
So Nola va partager. Are you going to share your screen, Nola?
I don't know how to share it. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the letter's not very clear because it's been written on the back of the pages and that's coming through as well. So it's probably not worth sharing. I can send it as an attachment to someone if they want it. Might be the best way if we want to share.
Okay.
So I'll just go ahead and read it.
Attends, Nola, can you wait a second? I'll just maybe say something in French so that the people, everyone can understand. So, pour nos amis français, Nola vient de nous dire qu'elle a devant elle la lettre qui a été écrite par son grand-oncle juste avant une bataille à Armentières en 1917, arrière-grand-oncle, et la lettre est arrivée en Australie, mais malheureusement, son arrière-grand-oncle est décédé pendant la bataille. Donc, c'est la dernière lettre que sa famille a reçue. Et Nola va la lire maintenant. Go ahead, Nola.
D'accord. Somewhere in France, the 19th of January 1917. So 19 janvier 1917. My dear people, just a few lines to let you know that Will and I, that was his best friend, are in the best of health, having just come out of the trenches for the second time. We had a fairly decent time and now are back in our billets, enjoying a brief spell from the constant duty of trench life. I have not received many letters this trip, and I will be very pleased to receive the socks you spoke about, although I have still a very decent supply and my reserve at Bristol, which would have been in England. There is very little news, but I see by your letter, which I have just received, that you are having a good time at the church. You know your news is taken very well, and I think you will find a jolly nice girl. I don't understand that bit. Hoping this finds you all well, with fondest love to you all, I remain your affectionate son, Maurice Mayfield. Now, this letter is the last one, and it's the shortest because it was written from France. His previous letters were all written from England, and they're, of course, full of information, but in France they wouldn't have been allowed to even say where they were. So he died on the 21st of February 1917, and the last letter received by my grandmother was from the Australian nursing sister who held his hand as he died. And she cut a lock off his hair and put it in an envelope and sent it with, it came with the personal effects that his friend Will, who survived, brought home to my great-grandmother. So that's the story of Morris Herbert Mayfield from Adelaide. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Nana.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Je voulais demander à Dominique et à Christian et Laurence, est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose d'organisé aujourd'hui à Villers Bretonneux? Est-ce qu'il y a une présence australienne? Peut-être l'ambassadeur d'Australie en France, non?
À notre connaissance, non. Je ne sais pas, Dominique, moi, je n'ai pas d'informations. Simplement, tout le monde a été invité à mettre des drapeaux ou à mettre des bougies sur son balcon pour ce matin, pour en souvenir de l'ANZAC Day, la cérémonie. Mais il n'y a pas de cérémonie officielle à cause de la pandémie.
D'accord.
Il y a une petite cérémonie au mémorial, très réduite, avec des officiels français, avec 4-5 officiels, c'est tout.
D'accord.
Aujourd'hui, à 8 h du matin.
Il y a eu très peu de publicité de fête parce qu'on ne veut pas du tout qu'il y ait participation de la population. Ils ont voulu que ça soit très confidentiel et à cause du confinement pour le Covid, quoi.
D'accord, merci. Est-ce que, une autre question en français, est-ce que normalement les habitants de Villers Bretonneux participent à la cérémonie? Est-ce que c'est quelque chose que la plupart font?
Oui, il y a pas mal d'habitants qui participent, peut-être un petit peu moins qu'à une époque. Nous, avant qu'on y participe, donc on m'a dit que dans les années 80-90, il y avait davantage d'habitants qui participaient. Je ne sais pas pourquoi maintenant, il y en a un petit peu moins. Mais il y a quand même une forte implication des habitants de Villers Bretonneux sur cet événement, quoi. Ça reste l'événement majeur au niveau de l'année, au niveau de la commune.
Et en fait, tout dépend aussi quel jour la cérémonie du don de service tombe. Parce que chez nous, l'ANZAC Day n'est pas férié. Donc, les gens qui travaillent, en général, ne peuvent pas se rendre. Il y a plus de monde quand ça passe un dimanche ou un samedi.
D'accord, pendant le week-end. Et est-ce que ça fait plusieurs années que vous habitez près de Villers Bretonneux ou même à Villers Bretonneux? J'espère que je le prononce bien. Villers Bretonneux.
Très bien, Pascal.
Merci. Au niveau de la participation des Australiens, est-ce qu'il y a eu une évolution?
Oui.
Il y a eu énormément de monde pour la fête centenaire. Forcément, c'était une année exceptionnelle. Mais de toute façon, de manière générale, on voit quand même la participation augmenter. Le tourisme de mémoire, comme on appelle ça par chez nous, prend vraiment une part de plus en plus importante. On constate qu'il y a énormément d'événements maintenant qui se déroulent toute la semaine autour de l'ANZAC Day. On a des villages autour, à Vignacourt, par exemple, il y a un village dans lequel il y a eu un grand musée qui s'est mis en place et qui attire énormément de monde. Et on se rend compte qu'il y a pas mal d'Australiens qui font un véritable circuit, aussi au mémorial de Péronne. Maintenant, il y a un vrai programme, il y a vraiment des tours opérateurs qui s'investissent. Même si on voit des Australiens toute l'année, on constate que cette semaine-là, c'est quand même une semaine intense.
D'accord, merci. Et une autre question qui est, j'allais emmener un groupe scolaire cette année, en septembre, et on allait justement aller à Villers Bretonneux, mais bon, on espère que ça se fera l'an prochain. Est-ce qu'il y a moyen de contacter l'école et peut-être de les rencontrer?
Oui, bien sûr.
Oui. Avec le professeur de musique.
Par l'intermédiaire.
Il faut se rapprocher de la mairie. Et la mairie
on pourra t'aider, Pascal.
D'accord.
Pascal, on pourra te donner en aparté par mail tous les coordonnées, les correspondants que tu veux, hein, que ce soit au niveau de la mairie ou
du collège, le professeur de musique.
C'est un groupe scolaire, c'est des musiciens ou c'est C'est des scolaires.
C'est des lycéennes
D'accord.
donc, qui apprennent le français. Donc, c'est un voyage. Le but du voyage, c'est plutôt d'immersion
Oui.
culturelle et la langue aussi. Mais cette année, on allait justement visiter votre région.
Après, elles ne font pas de la chorale. Vous n'avez pas une chorale.
On a une chorale à l'école, mais les filles qui font du français jusqu'en 3e et seconde ne sont pas toutes forcément dans la chorale.
D'accord.
Et on a de la chance, on a quelques bonnes chanteuses, mais on n'a pas une chorale entière.
Mais je pense qu'il y a une possibilité de rencontrer les collégiens de Villers. Ça se fait régulièrement. Pour entrer en contact, oui, avec la mairie et le directeur du collège.
D'accord.
Mais Dominique enverra les coordonnées. Enfin, s'il a tes coordonnées, tu les enverras.
D'accord, je vous remercie.
Oui, il ne faut pas hésiter à nous, Pascal. Hein.
D'accord. Est-ce que quelqu'un d'autre aurait une question parmi nos amis australiens?
Question, est-ce que la cérémonie est enregistrée par quelqu'un ou est-ce qu'elle sera envoyée? Ce qu'on a fait ce matin.
Elle est enregistrée. D'ailleurs, j'ai oublié d'éteindre l'enregistrement. On est encore en train d'être enregistré.
D'accord.
Je pense que je vais pouvoir je vais arrêter l'enregistrement maintenant et je pense que je pourrai